Hello class, Moses here, signing on. This is not a continuation of our discussion about Introduction to HTML5, and we are now on the part 6. Let's begin. This is it. Today is the day we're finally going to teach you enough HTML that you can start making an interesting page to share with your friends and family. It is also, unfortunately, probably, or at least hopefully, our first really big disappointment. And the reason is we need to just break it to you right away that we can't teach you all of the HTML5 tags. There are floods of them. We can't teach them all to you, and you don't want You don't want me to teach you all the tags, for sure, because there are so many of them, and 1 week is not enough. It would be incredibly, it's so incredible, it would be incredibly boring for me to list them all off to you, and it would be also boring to you as well. Instead, we're gonna get you started and point you in the direction of where you can find resources for more tags. Because it's really not until you need a tag that you ever really bother learning about it. That's the thing, the fact that we need to accept. So every tag has a beginning and end. So right here, we're using what's called an H1 tag or a heading tag to encase the words hello world. The first H1 is the start tag. It just shows the simple tag that we want inside brackets. The second tag, the closing tag, always starts with a slash. It indicates to the browser she's about to end the tag. This is one of the most common, is to have the start tag and the closing tag with some sort of text inside of it. Our next tag or the image tag is what's called a self-closing tag. There's only one tag and it contains both the beginning and the end. In this case, as soon as the browser sees the image tag, it knows that you're gonna give it information that it can use to create a picture. And since there's no real text associated with the image, at least at this point, or any that you want to show on this screen, it's going to close itself. So while every tag has a beginning and an end, some do close differently. Also, some tags have what we call attributes. So the source, which is where the picture is located, and href, which is where the new page you want to go to is. So when we talk about the tags, for some of them, we'll also be talking about the attributes. Before we begin, we want to talk to you about one of the most important attributes in an element, and that's its display. The two most common display types are what are called block and inline. Block tags are ones that take up a certain amount of width and height, So anytime you have a tag that's called block, it's the same thing as if when you were typing, you hit new line at the end or enter or return. Inline tags are ones that only take up as much space as is needed. I'm gonna show you how, I mean, we will show you examples of both, but we really want you to understand some tags are blocked and some are inline. And it may not seem important now, but it's the kind of thing that's going to make it much easier for when you're trying to make your pages look a certain way. So some of the most common tags includes the ones we're about to tell you. Headings are block tags. You have H1, H2, H3, all the way down to H6. These tags have what are both called syntax and semantics. To the browser, at first sight, it might simply mean, hey, everything that's in an H1 tag, we want to make it really big and bold. And things that are H6, we also want to make them slightly bigger and bolder, but not nearly big and bold as the ones of the lower numbers. What a lot of people do is they just kind of randomly throw around H3 tags or H4 tags just because they like the look that the text takes on it. But these tags are also have semantics, kind of a meaning that you don't see when you just look at it. And the semantics are things that are in an H1 tag. These have much higher importance than things that are in an H5 or H6. And this is very important for people who are using screen readers. If you start throwing H3 tags and H2 tags all over the place just because you want them to be a little bit bigger and bolder, it's going to be very confusing. Another extremely common tag is the paragraph tag. It's also blocked, and inside of it, you can only contain another or other inline elements. So you can put a lot of text, a lot of pictures, and things like that. But you should never put a paragraph inside of a paragraph, or even you should never put a heading inside of a paragraph. Another common tag is the div tag. This is a generic section that tends to be larger than a paragraph, and it's related content that you would like to group together. Divs used to be the most popular tag. You would use the div for everything. The problem with divs is that there's really no semantic meaning behind the div. If you put a lot of them to your page, you're not giving your readers or users any extra information to let them know that this is a footer or a header or something along those lines. Two additional tags that you'll find you'll use a lot are the list tags. If you put in the tag OL, that stands for an ordered list, by default it's going to put each list item as 1, 2, 3, etc. You need to make sure that you end each of your list items before you start the next one. And you need to make sure that you've ended all your list items before you end your ordered list. The unordered list is very similar, only instead of using numbers, you'll use special symbols, perhaps the circle or the small square, depending upon your browser. Now, Later, when we talk about attributes, we'll mention that you can go ahead and change your ordered list. So instead of being regular numbers, you're using Roman numerals or uppercase letters or lowercase letters. But by default, these are just going to either be a 1, 2, 3, 4, etc. or some sort of little list. Finally, one more tag that we know you're gonna see a lot of this is the line break tag. Line break is simply a BR, stands for line break. And this is a self-closing tag. Now, one of the things that very important that we tell you is when you're typing your code, you can put as many line breaks in your code as you want. Enter, 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 but the browser ignores all of it. The browser is not going to put something on a new line unless it runs out of space or it specifically sees the BR tag. So we mentioned before with the list that tags can have attributes. Attributes provide additional information about an element. Sometimes they're absolutely necessary, sometimes they're just supplemental. The important thing to remember is that attributes are always specified in the start tag in the beginning, and attributes come in a name value pair. So let's go ahead and look at a tag that needs attributes in order to work. We're going to use the image tag as an example. Images are inline, which means you can actually put many images next to each other. And in order for an image tag to work, you pretty much need to tell the computer what picture it is you want it to show. So in this case, the source attribute that indicates the browser that the picture you want to show is called mypicture.jpg. Always notice that again, it's a name value pair. So the name of the attribute, it sorts and the value always goes in double quotes. And in this case is mypicture.jpg. Many people will just end right there, but we don't want you to do that. Images should also always include an alt attribute. Alt stands for alternative text, and this is what's going to show up to somebody who's using a screen reader, or even if the picture is missing for some reason because you've misnamed your file. This will allow you, if you have the little broken picture, some sort of text to show up to help people realize what it is you're trying to show. So in this case, we have one tag which you can tell because of the bracket and two attributes, source and alt. Now, speaking of images, there's a few things we want to mention to you. Images rarely work the first time you use them. They're either going to show a broken link because you wrote the wrong file name, or you forgot to upload it, or it's not in the right file, or the picture is going to be too big or too small or something like that. Unless you have the broken link and you're just worried about the appearance, we want you to just let it go for right now. What we care about right now is that you can get tags to work. We're gonna worry about appearance later. So if you really have your heart set on making things look a certain way, then make sure that you open up the picture in some sort of editor and save it to exactly the size you want and give it a really good name. It's very frustrating to work on your web page when all of your files are named image underscores 02586 7, etc. Here's an example for you of one image tag with multiple attributes. We have the image tag followed by source logo.jpg. We have the alternative text, which is info for the screen readers and broken links. We include a title attribute, which will often display when you hover over the image. And then we also have a class attribute, which might indicate extra formatting such as the height, the width, the position, and a lot more. As you learn more in more tags, you're gonna learn that they have specific attributes. It makes no sense for an image to also include some sort of href. It makes no sense for a link to include other attributes. But there are some that apply to many of the tags, so we just want to mention them to you quickly, and we'll come back to them later in the class. The first is, well, the class attribute. What it does is it applies special properties to groups of elements. We'll use that later when we want to say, hey, we want to style all these pictures perhaps as thumbnails. LDS specify a very unique ID to just a single element of the page. And you're gonna want to do this if you want to link back to it. If later you want to apply JavaScript to it, but ID says, hey, this is a special part of the page, you're not gonna find anything else like it. Style is an attribute that used to be very widely used. Style lets you apply visual style, so you can put in special colors or spacing and things like that. The next one is called access key. And an access key is very important for accessibility. It allows a shortcut key to kind of activate or put into focus an element. So maybe you have a big page and you have a form or something on it, and you want someone to be able to quickly get to a certain part of your page. You can give them an access key. In the same way, some people may be accessing your page and only using the tab button to navigate through your page. If you do that, you're gonna wanna be careful about putting what's called a tab index, and it lets you actually specify which order people get to different elements in your page. So even though something may come later in the page, if you feel it's really important, you can put a high tag index and then get there quickly. Okay, so one of the things we told you is that all tags start with a bracket, which is fine. That's very easy to figure out, and the browser knows whenever it sees a bracket, it shouldn't display the content. It should do something fancy. So what do you do if you want the browser to display a bracket and say, hey, this is it, a start tag? Well, then you're gonna use special entities. So what do you do if you want the browser to display a bracket? And again, hey, this is a start tag. So let's use a special entities. So if you want a bracket, then use ampersand. Ampersand, look at your screen. Ampersand it. The it stands for less than, and please note that's an L, not a 1. You could also do ampersand GT for greater than. And copy, if you like, do not forget the ampersand copy. If you'd like extra blank spaces, you actually have to use a special entity. Putting space, the browser ignores it. You'd have to actually put ampersand and BSP. If you want the sent, all right, well, what if you actually want an ampersand? Well, in that case, we even have a special entity for that, which is ampersand amp. So we've gone through a number of tags today, and we're going to learn more and more tags and probably use cheat sheets and go online to find a bunch of different tags you want to use. So the link is provided for that. So you can find a lot of more, a lot or floods, should I say floods of tags and attributes which you can use in designing your web page. So an important note for this that we want you to know is, how do you know the difference between a tag and an attribute? And the key is to look for those brackets. Also, you're gonna want to make sure that you know which two symbols and whatever the two symbols and a self-closing tag. Alright, don't forget that's where you have the forward slash in the closing bracket. These are the kind of things that can really mess up or your code when you try to validate it later. And so being cognizant of these ideas in the beginning will really help you write much cleaner code. Again, cleaner code. And that's end our discussion for part 6. This is Mom Says saying faith, hard work, and a bit of common sense will get you through most things in life. And so that's it. Watch out for more video tutorials. Stay safe and God bless everyone. Thank you for watching. This is Mom Says, signing off.